G'day gamers, Ranger Tony here with another Pathfinder Kingmaker tutorial video. So we've done a few other Kineticist videos. We've done an intro to Kineticists, we've done the intro to Kineticist Blasts. Today we're going to talk about Blast Infusions. Blast Infusions are a way that the Kineticist can change the attributes of their blast. This may be the distance that it goes, it may be the shape of the blast, it might be magical effects that it applies to the blast when it's cast. So we're going to look at those and find out what they are, how they work, what they're good for. So, infusions. There are a lot of infusions and wild talents available. They all have varying levels of use. The first sort of ones that you're likely to get, it can depend on which elements you choose as to what you get available. But at first level, you generally only get extended range and kinetic blade as available. Now, whenever you're making your decisions here, one of the things you need to be aware of is the save throws. So if we look at extended range here, we can see that there is no save throw against this. So all this blast is doing, it's costing us 1 burn to give us an extended range. We go to 50 feet, I think, rather than normally 25 or 30 feet or something. So that is good. It costs me burn, but there's no saving throw. But a lot of the infusions that you get, which can change the way you do damage or how your blast works, they will instead have a save throw associated with them. And you need to weigh up whether that's something that you want to do, whether you want to, rather than determining how you're going to hit, you instead change that to a save throw. Because if you're throwing your blast rather than using a kinetic blade, you're doing a ranged touch attack. A ranged touch attack ignores armor class. So basically, whatever armor they're wearing doesn't matter. Their dexterity still gets taken into account, and any magical armor protection that they have. So, for example, an amulet of natural armor or braces of natural armor, which increases your natural armor class, will affect it. But whenever you look at your stats and you see the touch attack armor class, it's always different from your normal armor, and it's just basically taking whatever protection that armor gives you away. So range-based touch attacks are a lot easier to hit with because you don't have to get through the armor, you just have to be able to hit them at a distance. So it's like, as long as you can throw a ball and hit that person, that's all you need to do. You don't need the ball to penetrate, you just need to hit them, and then from there the magic goes to work. So if your dexterity is really, really good and you're doing a range-based touch attack against an opponent, you're probably going to be a lot more likely to hit them than to defeat their saving throw. So their saving throw at a higher level is such that they might be able to fairly easily negate your effect. Now, again, it is based on your primary attribute, so Constitution in the case of a regular Kineticist, or intelligence for a dark elementalist, and wisdom for a psychokineticist. That will determine how easy it or hard it is for them to evade that. So if you're going to use a lot of the infusions that have a save throw, you want to keep that primary attribute as high as possible. If you don't want to use that, you can keep that ability low. So let's have a bit more of a look at some of these infusions. So we've seen extended range, and the kinetic blade we know about as well. It basically just creates a blade in your hand. It's unclear how many of the normal, regular melee feats that you get are useful with the kinetic blade. Piranha Strike does not seem to be. Things like Slashing Grace, Fencer's Grace, any of those sorts of ones don't seem to work. So it doesn't seem like it's possible to add your dexterity bonus to damage using the kinetic blade and some combination of feats. I have had one commenter suggest that some of the element types do affect this as well, so that maybe the earth type would be able to, and the water might be able to, but the other ones can't. I've not seen that yet, so I'm not sure. But yeah, if you're going to use the kinetic blade, certainly weapon finesse will work, so you can use weapon finesse, but otherwise you're going to be relying on strength for hit and damage with that. Blade Whirlwind is another one that works with the kinetic blade at higher levels and allows you to attack. You make a single attack against all foes around you. From level 5 onwards, you can take that one. Bowling Infusion you can get early at level 2. This one does the trip combat maneuver against any of your opponents. So you have to remember, though, that's a combat maneuver that they can save against. But you do use your Constitution modifier instead of your Strength to determine your bonus to that check. So you want to be careful with that one. It's unclear if the Constitution modifier would be changed to Intelligence or Wisdom for Dark Kineticists and Dark Elementalists and Psychokineticists. So play around with that one. I haven't used that one yet. I don't like the idea of it. This one's also only available for any of the earth-based blasts, so earth, magma, metal, or mud. Those are all the different types of blasts that have earth as some form of them. Burning Infusion is only available for the fire-based blasts, and you can take this one from level 1. It's one of the reasons why you might want to take Fire Blast early on, but it has a reflex save to negate the ability. You basically, your Fire Blast is such that it causes your opponent to catch on fire, and then each round they can try and make their save throw to basically extinguish those flames. If they don't, then they take an extra 1d6 of damage. So it's a nice ability. Even though it only costs 1 burn, you can offset that with low gather power and cast that as often as you like. As long as your opponents aren't going to make their reflex saves, they're going to take a little bit more damage. So it's a nice ability to have if you're going down the flame route. Chilling Infusion, again, only for the ice-based blasts. It does have a fortitude save on that, so be aware of that. 3 burns, so it's a little bit of burn. And really, for the fact that it only staggers your opponent for 1 round, I'm not sure I feel it's that useful. I've never actually taken it when I've played around with this class. Cloud. So this is one that affects not the damage that you do, but the shape of your blast. So this one uses up 4 burn, so it's quite high, and you have to be level 7. You can't get this until you're level 14. It's a level 7 blast type, but it's level 14. And it's only available for air or water elementals, or elements. And you need to have extended range as a prerequisite. But what it does is it creates a 20-foot cloud anywhere within 50 feet of you, and any creature that enters the cloud takes half of the normal amount of damage from your blast. So this one's a little strange because it takes half the damage, but as long as they stay in there, they keep taking damage. So the idea is that you cast the blast and it creates a cloud, and the cloud is big enough, and your opponents can't get out of it in time, then they're going to keep taking damage, and it lasts for the number of rounds equal to your Constitution modifier. Again, not really sure I like this one because even though there's no save throw, they only take half the damage. So you really almost want to use a composite blast here to double the amount of damage you would normally be doing, so that they take a normal amount of damage rather than half of your damage. But it's a 20-foot radius cloud, so it does a fair radius, and it will keep doing damage for several rounds if you can keep the opponents in there. So, it might be worthwhile if you want to go to that level. Cyclone is a similar type of blast. Only uses 3 burn, and you can take this from level 8. You have to be using air elements for this. It's a circular rush of wind, 20-foot radius, but it's centered on you, not on, it's not a distance one. So this is a good one to have around you, but there is a reflex save on it, and they do take half of the normal damage. And also be aware, because this blast is centering on you, while you don't take any damage, any companions within 20 feet of you will take damage from this. So you're really going to want to be out by yourself if you're casting this one, so that you don't get hurt. Dazzling Infusion, then, this one's available from first level. It's only available to fire blasts, to fire elements. Basically, it's the same as a flare spell. They get dazzled for a minute, whether or not they take... If they fail their will save, they get dazzled. That's whether or not they take damage from the blast. Yeah, sort of useful, but, if you want someone who can cast, a flare spell, get a sorcerer, because they don't get burn associated with it. They don't lose health every time they do it. Deadly Earth is, as the name suggests, an earth element. It's level 12 before you can get it, and you have to have had extended range. It costs 4 burn, so that's quite a bit, but it basically creates a 20-foot radius on the ground within 50 feet of you, so it's very similar to Cloud. And again, any creature that enters, they get half damage. So it's exactly the same as Cloud, but it's an earth-based one. Same sort of restrictions on it. You really do need to be careful, but if you can keep your opponents in that area, as long as the infusion lasts, they're going to keep taking damage from it. Detonation. I have played around with this one a little bit, and I actually quite like it. But again, there's limitations on it. So you have to be... It costs 3 burn, which isn't too bad. It's only available if you take the fire element. And there's a reflex save for half the damage. So that's good, because at least they take some damage no matter what. Okay? But this one is again centered on you, and flames shoot out to everything within 20 feet. So once again, don't be right next to your companions when you do this one. But if you're off by yourself and you're surrounded by opponents, this is a really great one. Does a good amount of damage, and they can only save for half. So you can be guaranteed they're going to take some damage from this no matter what. Entangling Infusion. This is the same as the Entangle spell, basically. You can get it at level 4 Kineticist. It uses 2 burn, and your opponents become entangled for a minute. They have a reflex save. It's exactly the same as the spell. Any cleric or any spellcaster basically can cast this, and it doesn't cost them burn. So you have to be earth or water-based, sorry. I don't know that I really would use this one. I don't think I'd ever take this. I'd much rather have a normal spellcaster cast this. Of course, it's very useful if you do want to take it. It does the same thing as Entangle, so... look, the huge advantage on this, if you can get an Entangle off and you can get multiple opponents entangled, and then in the next round you cast one of the Cloud or the Deadly Earth or something like that over the same area, you got your opponents stuck there, and they're going to take damage for however long you can keep them there for you to the entangle. So, those combinations might work really well for you. I'm not a huge fan of this one, though. Eruption is quite nice. From a level 6, it's only fire. And this is similar to the Cloud or to the Deadly Earth. It only does a 10-foot radius pillar, but and they can only reflex save for half. So that's the advantage. The other ones just automatically did half damage to everything in the area. This one they can reflex save for half. So I think this one's a little bit better than those, but it's a smaller radius, only 10 foot rather than 20 foot. So be aware of that. Fan of Flames is your standard burning hand. 15-foot cone, reflex save for half damage. If you're going to take this, it is better than some other ones because it's reflexing only for half damage. So it's one of the good things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that's good for fire. This is another fire one. It is a burning hand spell, but it only costs you 1 burn, so you can do a gather low power and then cast it, and you get no burn out of it at all. So yeah, it's not too bad, particularly if you're taking flame and you're worried things are going to get in close. Flash Infusion, again, blinded for 1 round. It's the fire element. You can get it from level 8. and will negates. I don't know that I really would worry about this. It's very similar to the dazzling infusion. I don't know why you would take this over the dazzling. It's exactly the same, basically. So, yeah. Firefox Infusion. This basically does a Fairy Fire spell on your opponent. It reveals their location, they can't hide, they can't be invisible, and it lasts for a number of rounds. It's 2 burn, though. It's not worth it. If you want this, get a cleric and get them to cast it. I don't think it's worth it, but, you know, at the same time as doing damage to them, you're also lighting them up with Fairy Fire, so you can still see them if they're you know, prone to go invisible and run away. So I think there's only very few instances where it would be that useful. If the Fairy Fire gave you some sort of bonus to attack after you hit them the first time, so that it became easier to attack them once they were lit up with Fairy Fire, I would definitely recommend it, but it doesn't, so I don't think it's worth it. Fragmentation, earth or water elements here, costs 4 burn, so that's quite a bit. It's basically almost like a little meteor, a volatile sphere of solid matter that shatters into countless shards. So it's a 20-foot sphere, up to 50 feet away from you. It's like the cloud, but it only lasts for a single round. Depending on... So they do have half damage. Okay, so they take half the normal damage and they can reflex save to do half again. And if you miss, it does no damage at all. So this one really doesn't sound all that great at all. First of all, you've got to hit with it. It's not like the cloud or things like that where you can just place it where you want to. This one you still have to hit the target. If it misses, then it does nothing to anybody. Even though you could do a near miss, it's not good enough. And then if it does hit, it normally does half damage, and they can take another save throw to do half of that. So I wouldn't use this one. The name of it sounds great, and at first glance you might think it's good, but I don't think it's that useful. Grappling Infusion, it's a web spell. Let's put it out there. It's pretty simple. It doesn't matter what element you're using, you can cast it. You have to already know Wall, Deadly Earth, or Cloud. And what it basically means is when you use Wall, Deadly Earth, or Cloud, it adds a web component to it. So it's actually quite useful. You can't use it by itself, but when you use those other ones, it works alongside them to keep them in that area. So that's another way of doing it. If you didn't want to take the Entangling Infusion, you could use this Grappling Infusion. So it might work well with those and make those more useful. But there is a reflex save on this. You're never going to get it without a save. It would be too OP otherwise. Magnetic Infusion, I don't know that I would use this one either. It's air or earth based, 2 burn associated with it. There's no save throw, but all it really does is give a bonus. I suppose I said before it would be nice to have something like this, I guess. This is what the Foxfire could have done. Gives a +4 bonus only till the end of the next round, and that's where the problem is. Anyone who makes attacks with metal weapons gets a +4 bonus until the end of the next turn, and the foe receives a -4 penalty on reflex saves to avoid metallic objects. So it buffs your guys and debuffs other guys by making your opponent more metallic and therefore more likely to get hit by metal weapons. I'm just not really sure that I would use it. Pure Flame Infusion. This one is a fire one again, but you have to have taken both flames, so flame and fire a second time to get the blue flame blast. So basically your fire blasts can ignore spell resistance. So if someone has spell resistance, you'll be able to blast through that and do obviously damage where you normally wouldn't. One of the few advantages of going down the flame route is the ability to get this one. If you're going to go flame based, I definitely recommend this. You'll thank yourself at higher levels, but it costs a fair bit of burn, so you're going to use it sparingly. It's when you've noticed that you can't get through their spell resistance that you'll want to turn that on. Pushing Infusion, you can get this one very early on at level 1 for Earth, Air and Water. I don't know that I would find it all that useful though. all it does is the bull rush combat maneuver against your opponent. Sure, if you want to keep your opponent further away from you and knock them back a bit, that can be nice, but I don't know that it's all that useful. The rare metal infusion, so you have to be Metal Blast, which means you had to have taken both of the earth infusions to get this. It's only 2 burn, so any of your metal blasts bypass damage reduction as if they were adamantine, cold iron, or silver. So basically anyone who has any sort of damage reduction that is only affected by adamantine, cold, or iron, you can still damage them. So that, again, like the pure flame infusion, this is a good one to take that you will use at higher levels when you come across situations where you just can't seem to get past some damage reduction. Spindle, this is another blast shape infusion. You can get it at level 4. It costs 2 burn. It doesn't matter what blast you're using or what element you're using, but you can a 5 by 10 foot a spindle, basically almost like a lightning bolt type of arrangement. They only take half damage, and if they save, they get no damage at all. So you really want to be careful with this. Oh, sorry, the energy blasts do full damage. The physical blasts only do half damage, and a reflex save negates all damage. So good if you're using energy blasts, not so good if you're using physical blasts, and there's always a reflex save in there, so be aware of the reflex. Spray is a 30-foot cone rather than the 15-foot cone, so it's more like a cone of cold rather than the burning hands type situation from the fan of flames we saw earlier. Only water element. It is good that they do a reflex save for half damage, but this only does half normal damage anyway, so the reflex save will mean they only take quarter damage, so be aware of that. And it's 3 burn, so not sure I would use that one. It's a bit costly and does, a little bit less damage, but it's going to affect multiple opponents. So Synaptic Infusion, air only. Basically, you're hitting them with a blast of electricity, which stops them from being able to control their body properly. If they do a will save, they're fine. If they don't, they're staggered for 1 round. Again, it's only 1 round that they're staggered for, so not sure I would use this one if it was a few more rounds, or if they had to negate it by making a will save, so it kept going until they, like the Burning Infusion does for fire, I would use it more. But it's only a single round, so I probably wouldn't use this one. Torrent, any air, fire, or water infusion elements. 2 burn for this. It's a 30-foot line. It's another lightning bolt type of deal. Half damage for physical, full damage for energy. Save a dex-based reflex save for half damage, so not bad. I'd probably use this one over most of the other blast shapes, purely because if you're using energy blast, it does full damage and it's a reflex save for half. The problem is there's a lot of creatures that are going to make reflex saves easier than they're going to make some other saves, so be aware of that. Unraveling Infusion sort of works like a Dispel Magic. So if it penetrates their spell resistance, it will basically then dispel any magic that's on that opponent. It's probably a high level one. I don't know that I would use it all that often. It's only available for Fire Blast. 3 burn isn't bad for what it does, but it's going to be very specific use cases. You're not going to use this very often at all. I would probably go for the spell penetration one rather than this one, but it's a matter of choice really. And the last infusion of the blast infusions is the wall. So the wall infusion is it doesn't say how big it is. It's a wall of energy. So you're allowed to, it draws a wall. Any opponents that move through it take half normal damage or full damage from an energy blast, and they can make there's no saving throw, so they always get damaged. So this one's a good one because they can't save it. They can choose not to step through the wall, but if you do manage to stop the opponents in place and put the wall on top of them, then they can't move and they can't get out of it and they can't save. They take the damage, and it'll last, for whatever your primary attribute modifier is. So that's the infusions. I will do another video on the wild talents and we will talk about them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them down below and I will see you for the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.